The morning sun rose over New Sol Colony like any other day. Children ran through the streets laughing. Farmers checked their crops in the green fields. Market vendors sold fresh food to their neighbors. Nobody knew this would be their last, peaceful day. Hyun-woo Park stood on his office balcony, looking out at the city he had helped build. As colony administrator, he had watched New Sol grow from empty land into a home for 2.3 million people. The colony was 30 years old now. 3 decades of hard work had turned dead planets into living worlds that fed people across many star systems. "Sir, we have a problem," said Bo-ram Kim, running into his office. She was the colony defense chief, and Hyun-woo had never seen her look so worried. "What is it?" he asked. "Long-range sensors picked up a massive fleet. They're heading straight for us. The ships, they're huge, sir. Much bigger than anything we've seen before." Hyun-woo felt his stomach drop. "How long do we have?" 6 hours, maybe less. The alien fleet appeared in the sky like dark clouds blocking out the sun. The ships were enormous, each one the size of a small city. They moved in perfect formation, casting shadows across the colony below. People stopped what they were doing and stared up at the sky in fear. A transmission came through on all frequencies. The face that appeared on every screen was reptilian, with cold yellow eyes and sharp teeth. When it spoke, its voice was like grinding metal. "I am Supreme Commander Krexthal of the Valdric Empire," the alien said. "You humans have settled on our ancient territory. You have 72 hours to leave this system. Take nothing but your lives. Any who remain after this time will be destroyed." The transmission ended, leaving only silence. Hyun-woo called an emergency meeting. The colony's leaders gathered in the command center, their faces pale with worry. "We need to evacuate," said Dr. Sunmi Choi, the head of the colony's schools. "Get the children out first." "With what ships?" asked Ji-ho Lee, the chief engineer. "We have transport vessels for maybe 50,000 people. There are over 2 million of us here." Bo-ram Kim pulled up the colony's defense plans. "We could fight. Our shields are strong and we have some weapons." "Against that fleet?" Hyun-woo shook his head. "We're farmers and teachers, not soldiers. Those ships could wipe us out in minutes." "Then what do we do?" someone asked. Hyun-woo was quiet for a long moment. "We try to negotiate. Maybe we can buy more time, get as many people out as we can." He opened a channel to the alien fleet. "Supreme Commander Krexthal, this is Colony Administrator Hyun-woo Park. We request more time to evacuate. We have families here, children who have never known any other home." The alien's laugh was like breaking glass. "Your spawn mean nothing to us. 72 hours. Not 1 second more." The next 3 days were chaos. Every transport ship, cargo hauler, and personal shuttle was packed with people trying to escape. Families were torn apart as they fought for space on the few vessels available. Children cried for parents left behind. Parents made impossible choices about which of their children to save. Ji-ho Lee worked without sleep, trying to get more ships ready. His wife Mina and their 2 young sons were supposed to be on the first transport out. But when the time came, there was no room. "Take the children," Mina told him. "I'll wait for the next ship." "No," Ji-ho said. "We stay together." Sunmi Choi refused to leave her students. "I won't abandon them," she said when offered a place on an evacuation ship. "A teacher's place is with her children." As the 72-hour deadline approached, only 847 people had made it off the planet. The last transport ship, badly damaged and overcrowded, struggled to leave the atmosphere. The rest of the colony watched it go, knowing they would probably never see their friends and families again. Hyun-woo stood in the colony's main square as the countdown reached 0. Around him, 2.3 million people waited for their fate. Some prayed. Some held their children close. Others just stared at the sky. "Citizens of New Sol," Hyun-woo said over the colony's communication system. "We built something beautiful here. We turned dead worlds into gardens. We raised our children in peace and love. Whatever happens now, remember that we lived as humans, should live, with hope, with kindness, with courage. The first energy beam struck the northern districts. Buildings that had stood for 30 years vanished in seconds. The ground shook as more beams rained down from the alien fleet. Ji-Ho Lee pulled his family into a shelter as the world exploded around them. Through the transparent walls he could see the city burning, the air filled with smoke and the screams of the dying. "Daddy, I'm scared," whispered his younger son, Jin-Woo. "It's okay," Ji-Ho lied, holding his boys tight. "Everything will be okay." But it wasn't okay. The bombardment continued for 6 hours. The aliens were thorough, making sure nothing survived. They turned cities into glass craters. They boiled lakes and rivers. They burned forests that had taken decades to grow. Sun Mi Choi died protecting her students in the school basement. She used her own body to shield them from falling debris. Her last words were about how much she loved them. Hyun-Woo Park made it to the colony's emergency bunker, where the main communications equipment was kept. Even as the building collapsed around him, he managed to send one final message to the escape transport ship. "This is Colony Administrator Hyun-Woo Park," he said, his voice breaking. "New Seoul Colony is gone. All of us are gone. Tell Earth. What happened here? Tell them we died as humans. Tell them to make these monsters pay for what they've done." The transmission ended as the bunker was hit by an energy beam that turned everything inside to ash. When the aliens finally stopped firing, there was nothing left of New Seoul Colony except smoking ruins. 2.3 million people had been murdered in 6 hours. An entire world had been turned into a graveyard. Supreme Commander Krexthal looked down at the destruction from his command ship. "Clean work," he said to his officers. "These humans learned their place. Send word to the Empire. The sector is ours again." The Valdric fleet departed, leaving behind only death and silence. They thought they had ended a problem. They had no idea they had just started a war that would shake the entire galaxy. In the darkness of space, the damaged transport ship carrying the 847 survivors limped toward Earth. In their databanks was the recording of Hyun-Woo Park's final message. Soon, the whole human race would know what had happened at New Seoul Colony. Soon they would know that their children had been murdered by monsters. And then, the monsters would learn what humans were really capable of when pushed too far. The damaged transport ship Hope's End drifted into Earth's solar system 3 weeks after the New Seoul massacre. Its hull was cracked and burned. Life support systems were failing. But inside, 847 survivors carried something more dangerous than any weapon: the truth about what had happened to their home. Captain Woo Jin-shin was the first to see the Earth from his hospital bed. He had been badly burned during the escape, but he was alive. Many others were not so lucky. Dozens had died during the long journey home, their bodies now buried in space. "We made it," whispered Dr. Hae-Young Kim, one of the few doctors who had escaped. She had worked without rest during the journey, trying to save as many lives as she could. "We're home." But Earth was not the same as they remembered. Word of the New Seoul Colony's destruction had already reached the homeworld. The entire planet was in shock. People gathered in the streets, staring at news screens that showed the smoking ruins of what had once been humanity's proudest achievement. President Tae Young-han stood before the United Earth Assembly, his face hard as stone. He had watched Hyun-Woo Park's final message dozens of times. Each viewing made his anger burn hotter. "My fellow humans," he began, his voice steady despite the rage building inside him. 23 days ago, 2.3 million of our brothers and sisters were murdered in cold blood. They were farmers, teachers, engineers, children. They had done nothing wrong except exist in a place that aliens wanted. The assembly hall was silent. Every representative from every nation on Earth listened as their president continued. "The Valdric Empire thought they were teaching us a lesson. They thought they were showing us our place in the galaxy. They were wrong." His voice grew louder. "They have shown us exactly what we are capable of when our children are threatened." The recording of Hyun-Woo Park's final transmission played on the main screen. His words echoed through the chamber. "Tell Earth what happened here. Tell them we died as humans. Tell them to make these monsters pay." When it finished, President Han looked out at the assembly. "The survivors of New Seoul Colony ask us to make the killers pay. I say we do exactly that. But we won't stop with just the Valdrix. Every species that watched this happen and did nothing will learn what human justice looks like. The vote was unanimous. Every nation on Earth agreed. There would be war. Admiral Kyung-ho Nam had fought in the border wars 20 years earlier. He was considered the greatest military mind of his generation. Now, at age 55, he was given a job that would define the rest of human history. "Admiral," President Han said when they met privately, "I'm giving you unlimited resources. Every factory, every shipyard, every weapon we have. I want you to build me a fleet that can burn the Valdric Empire out of existence. Sir, that will take time, years maybe. Then we take years. But when we're ready, I want every alien in the galaxy to know that humanity doesn't forgive and doesn't forget." Dr. Mi-Young Kang was called to the president's office the next day. She was the head of Earth's Advanced Weapons Division, a brilliant scientist who had been working on experimental military technology. "Doctor, I need weapons that will make the aliens wish they had never heard of humanity," President Han told her. "Sir, some of my research violates galactic warfare treaties. The aliens didn't worry about treaties when they murdered our children. I'm not worried about them now." Within weeks, Earth transformed from a peaceful world into a war machine. Factories that had made consumer goods were converted to produce military hardware. Scientists who had studied agriculture and medicine were reassigned to weapons research. Artists created propaganda that reminded everyone why they were fighting. The survivors of New Sol Colony were treated as heroes. Their testimonies were recorded and broadcast across human space. Every detail of the massacre was preserved, ensuring that future generations would remember why the war began. Ji-ho Lee, who had lost his family in the bombardment, became the face of human suffering. His interviews were watched by billions of people. He spoke simply about his wife and children, about the home they had built together, about watching it all burn. "They killed my sons," he said in one famous broadcast. Jin Woo was 8 years old. He loved to build things with blocks. Sung-min was 6. He wanted to be a farmer like his grandfather. The aliens didn't care. To them, my boys were just numbers to be erased. The effect was immediate. Recruitment offices were flooded with volunteers. Young people lined up for blocks to join the military. Parents of dead colonists demanded to be assigned to combat units. The entire human race wanted revenge. General Hae Jin Yang was put in charge of training the new recruits. She had never seen such motivation in soldiers before. These weren't people fighting for money or glory. They were fighting for justice. "Every one of you carries the names of the dead," she told new troops. "When you go into battle, you won't be fighting for Earth. You'll be fighting for Sun Mi Choi, the teacher who died protecting her students. You'll be fighting for Jin Woo and Sung-min Lee, 2 little boys who will never grow up. You'll be fighting for 2.3 million people who trusted the galaxy to let them live in peace." Intelligence Director Woo Jin-shin began planning covert operations throughout alien space. His agents spread out across the galaxy, gathering information about Valdric military bases, weapon factories, and population centers. "I want to know everything," he told his operatives. "Where they live, what they eat, how they sleep. When we strike, they won't have anywhere to hide." The aliens had no idea what was coming. They saw humanity's anger and dismissed it as the tantrum of a weak species. The Valdric celebrated their victory at New Sol. Other alien governments congratulated them on putting the humans in their place. The Nexari Confederacy, which had refused to accept human refugees, released a statement saying the colonists deserved their fate for settling on disputed territory. The hegemony of Vex called the massacre a reasonable response to human expansion. Each insult, each celebration, each expression of support for the killers was recorded by human intelligence. Lists were made, plans were drawn, targets were selected. "They think this is over," President Han said to his war council 6 months after the massacre. "They think they taught us a lesson about staying in our place. They're about to learn that humans don't have a place. We take whatever place we want." Admiral Nam presented the first plans for the new fleet. The ships would be called Warbringers, and they would be unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Each one would be a floating fortress designed for one purpose: absolute destruction. "How many can we build?" asked the president. With current resources and projected timeline, 800,000. President Han smiled for the first time since receiving news of the massacre. 800,000 ships of war. I like that number. Let's call it Operation Iron Storm. As the meeting ended, President Han looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Valdrix were probably planning their next atrocity. Other aliens were probably laughing about the weak humans, who had been so easily destroyed. Let them laugh, he thought. Let them celebrate. Let them think they've won. Because soon, very soon, humanity would show them what real monsters looked like. The war machine of Earth continued to grow. In hidden shipyards around Jupiter and Saturn, the first Warbringer hulls were being assembled. In secret laboratories, weapons that pushed the boundaries of physics were being tested. In training centers across the solar system, 800,000 humans prepared to become the instruments of galactic justice. The aliens had made one fatal mistake. They had shown humanity what it was capable of when its children were threatened. Now they would learn that some lessons come with a price too terrible to imagine. 18 months had passed since the New Sol massacre. In the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, the largest construction project in human history was taking shape. Hidden from alien sensors by advanced stealth technology, massive shipyards worked day and night to build humanity's revenge. Fleet Admiral Dong Hyun Yoon stood on the observation deck of Shipyard Alpha 7, watching the first completed Warbringer emerge from its construction bay. The ship was beautiful and terrible at the same time. 2 kilometers long, bristling with weapons that could crack planets, it looked like death given form. "She's magnificent," said Captain Min-ho Kim, who would command this first Warbringer. The ship had already been named. New Sol's Vengeance. "She's more than that," Admiral Yoon replied. "She's proof that humanity doesn't forget its children." The Warbringer-class ships were unlike anything ever built. Each one carried enough firepower to destroy entire fleets. Their quantum disruptors could tear apart matter at the molecular level. Their graviton cannons could collapse small moons. Their plasma storms burned hot enough to melt asteroids. But the weapons were only part of what made these ships special. Each crew member was a volunteer who had been personally affected by the New Sol massacre. They had lost family members, friends, or had simply been horrified by the cold-blooded murder of 2.3 million innocent people. Commander So-Young Park was typical of the new breed of human warrior. She was the daughter of Hyun-Woo Park, the colony administrator who had died in the final bombardment. She had been on Earth when the news came, studying advanced engineering. Now she led the Death's Head Squadron, elite pilots who flew experimental fighters designed for the most dangerous missions. "My father died trying to protect his people," she told her squadron during their final training exercise. "He couldn't save them, but we can avenge them." Every alien who supported the massacre, every government that celebrated our suffering, every species that turned their backs on us, they're all going to pay. Her pilots nodded. Like her, they all carried personal reasons for fighting. Lieutenant Tai-Jin Cho had lost his brother in the massacre. Flight Officer Yoo-Jin Han's fiancé had been teaching at the colony school. Squadron leader Joon-gi Park had grown up on New Sol before coming to Earth for military training. The training was brutal. These weren't just ordinary soldiers. They were instruments of human justice, and they had to be perfect. Admiral Yoon pushed them harder than any military force had ever been pushed before. "You are not fighting for territory or resources," he told them during graduation ceremonies. "You are fighting for the memory of every human child who died screaming in the flames of New Sol. You are fighting for every mother who watched her babies burn. You are fighting for every father who couldn't protect his family. You carry their names into battle, and you will not disappoint them." Dr. Mi Young Kang's weapons research had produced technologies that terrified even the scientists who created them. In her secret laboratories, she had pushed the boundaries of physics to create instruments of war that bordered on the impossible. "The quantum disruptors are ready," she reported to President Han during one of their weekly briefings. "They can unmake matter at the subatomic level. A single shot can erase a city-sized area from existence. And the graviton cannons? They manipulate gravity itself. We can create artificial black holes, crush ships into singularities, or tear apart planets. The aliens have never seen anything like this technology. President Han nodded grimly. Good. I want them to know they're facing something beyond their understanding. I want their last thought to be regret for what they did to our children. The production timeline was staggering. 800,000 Warbringers, each crewed by 1,000 dedicated warriors. Support ships, ammunition vessels, mobile repair stations. The logistics alone were mind-boggling. But humanity threw itself into the task with a dedication that amazed even the planners. Factories on Earth worked 3 shifts a day. Mining operations in the asteroid belt extracted raw materials at unprecedented rates. Entire cities were converted into weapon production centers. The human economy was restructured around a single goal: building the tools of alien destruction. Captain Kyung-Soo Lim commanded the construction crews at Shipyard Delta 12. His workers hadn't taken a day off in 8 months. They slept in shifts, beside their workstations. They ate meals while welding hull plates and installing weapon systems. "Sir, don't you think the crews need rest?" asked his second-in-command. "Rest?" Captain Lim looked at him with burning eyes. "Tell that to the children who died at New Seoul. Tell that to the families who were vaporized while they slept. We'll rest when every alien responsible for this atrocity is dead." The alien governments had no idea what was happening in human space. Their spies reported increased military production, but they assumed it was a defensive response to the New Seoul incident. They couldn't imagine the scale of what humanity was building. Supreme Commander Krex Thal, the Valdric leader who had ordered the massacre, was busy planning his next campaign. The destruction of New Seoul had made him a hero in the Empire. He was being promoted and given command of larger fleets. The humans learned their lesson, he told his officers during a strategy meeting. They know better than to challenge us now. We showed them what happens to species who forget their place. His officers laughed and agreed. The idea that the weak humans might pose a threat was absurd. They were farmers and traders, not warriors. The New Seoul massacre had proven that. Other alien governments shared this opinion. The Nexari Confederacy continued to refuse aid to human refugees. The hegemony of Vex began moving into territory that had previously been considered human space. They all assumed that humanity had been broken by the loss of their colony. They were making a fatal error. Intelligence Director Wu Jin-shin's operatives were everywhere, gathering data on every government that had supported or ignored the massacre. Fleet positions, defense capabilities, population centers, everything was cataloged and analyzed. "We have complete intelligence packages on 47 alien governments," he reported to the War Council. "Fleet dispositions, defensive positions, civilian targets. We know where they sleep and when they're most vulnerable." "Civilian targets?" asked General Yang. "Every alien child whose government supported the murder of our children," Shin replied coldly. "Every family that celebrated when New Seoul burned. They wanted to teach us about consequences. We're going to teach them the same lesson." As the second anniversary of the massacre approached, the final Warbringers rolled out of their construction bays. 800,000 ships of war, each one carrying the names of the New Seoul dead. The crews were ready. The weapons were tested. The targets were selected. Commander So Young Park stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Father's Promise. Around her, the largest military fleet in galactic history prepared for departure. Through the view screen, she could see thousands of other ships, each one a monument to human determination. "All ships report ready, Commander," announced her communications officer. "Signal Admiral Yoon," she ordered. "Death's Head Squadron is ready to fulfill our promise." Admiral Yoon received similar reports from all 800,000 ship commanders. The Iron Storm fleet was complete, crewed, and ready for war. He opened a channel to President Han on Earth. "Mr. President, the fleet is ready." "Then let's keep our promise to the dead," Han replied. "Launch Operation Iron Storm. Show the galaxy what happens when they murder human children." The order went out across the fleet. 800,000 Warbringers engaged their engines and began moving toward their targets. The journey would take several months, but when they arrived, the galaxy would never be the same. In the command center of his flagship Hyunwoo's Vengeance, Admiral Yoon looked at the memorial wall that listed every person who had died at New Sol Colony. 2.3 million names, each one representing a life cut short by alien cruelty. "We're coming," he whispered to the names on the wall. "Justice is on its way." Behind him, the greatest armada in history moved through space like a storm of iron and fire, carrying humanity's promise of retribution to every corner of the galaxy. 2 years after the New Sol massacre, the Iron Storm began. At exactly 800 hours Galactic Standard Time, 800,000 human Warbringers emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation across 47 different star systems. The sight was impossible to miss. Massive ships appearing like dark angels of death, their hulls gleaming with weapons that promised annihilation. On the bridge of his flagship Hyunwoo's Vengeance, Admiral Kyung-ho Nam watched as his forces took position around the Valdric homeworld. The planet below was where the orders for the New Sol massacre had come from. Today it would pay the price. "Sir, we're receiving surrender requests on all frequencies," reported Communications Officer Lee Min-jung. "Ignore them," Admiral Nam said coldly. "Open a channel to all Valdric forces." When the channel was active, he played a recording that every human ship carried. It was Hyunwoo Park's final transmission from New Sol Colony. "Tell Earth what happened here. Tell them we died as humans. Tell them to make these monsters pay." When the message ended, Admiral Nam spoke into his communicator. "This is Admiral Kyung-ho Nam of the Terran Fleet. 2 years ago, you murdered 2.3 million innocent humans, including children, teachers, and farmers who had done nothing but try to build a peaceful life. Today, you learn what justice looks like." The first volley from the human fleet lit up space like a second sun. Quantum disruptors tore through Valdric warships, unmanning their hulls at the molecular level. Graviton cannons created artificial black holes that crushed entire squadrons into singularities. Plasma storms hotter than star cores melted anything they touched. The Valdric home fleet, once the terror of 3 sectors, was completely destroyed in the first hour of battle. Ships that had taken decades to build were reduced to drifting atoms. Crews that had celebrated the New Sol massacre were vaporized before they could even reach their battle stations. Supreme Commander Krexthal watched from his command bunker as his capital city burned above him. The human bombardment was precise and merciless. Military installations, government buildings, weapon factories, everything connected to the war machine that had destroyed New Sol was being systematically annihilated. "Sir, we must surrender," urged one of his officers. "They'll kill us all." "No," Krexthal snarled, though his voice shook with fear. "Send the surrender signal. Maybe they'll show mercy." But mercy was not what humanity had come to deliver. The surrender transmission was answered with the same recording of Hyunwoo Park's final words, followed by Admiral Nam's voice. "You showed no mercy to our children. Expect none in return." Commander So-young Park led Death's Head Squadron in the attack on the Valdric Military Academy, the same facility where the New Sol assault had been planned and celebrated. Her fighters' weapons locked onto the main building where Krexthal had given the order to kill her father. "This is for you, Dad," she whispered as she pulled the trigger. The academy vanished in a ball of white-hot plasma. With it died the future of the Valdric military, thousands of young officers who would never live to threaten human colonies again. But the Valdric homeworld was just one target among dozens. Across the galaxy, human fleets struck simultaneously at every government that had supported, celebrated, or ignored the New Sol massacre. The Nexari Confederacy, which had refused to accept human refugees, found their trade stations burning. Captain Jae-sung Kim's task force had studied their shipping routes for months. Now every cargo vessel that had carried Nexari goods was being hunted down and destroyed. "This is Captain Kim of the Terran Navy," he broadcast to a fleeing Nexari. "Merchant ship. 2 years ago, human refugees begged for sanctuary in your space. You turned them away to die. Today, you learn what abandonment feels like." The merchant ship's cargo hold was full of luxury goods bound for Nexari colonies. Captain Kim's plasma cannons turned the entire vessel into expanding gas and debris. The hegemony of Vex had publicly applauded the New Sol massacre, calling it a lesson in proper galactic hierarchy. Now they learned about hierarchy from the wrong end of human weapons. Admiral Sung Ho Yoon's fleet surrounded their core systems like a tightening noose. All Vex military forces, lay down your arms immediately, Admiral Yoon commanded. You have 1 minute to comply. The Vex fleet commander tried to negotiate. Admiral, surely we can reach some accommodation. 50 seconds. Admiral Yoon interrupted. Please, we have families here, civilians who had nothing to do with. 30 seconds. The children of New Seoul had families too. We'll fight you, we have powerful weapons. 10 seconds, 9, 8. The Vex commander finally gave the surrender order, but it was too late. Admiral Yoon had made his decision before the conversation even started. Time's up, he said, and gave the order to fire. The Vex home fleet lasted longer than the Valdric's, almost 2 hours, but the result was the same. Burning ships, shattered worlds, and the bitter taste of justice served cold. On the Galactic Council station, the assembled alien governments watched in horror as reports poured in from across known space. The humans weren't just attacking military targets. They were systematically destroying any trace of the civilizations that had wronged them. We must stop this madness, declared the Altarian ambassador. The humans have gone insane with bloodlust. Have they? Asked the representative from Kepler Prime, one of the few governments that had offered aid to New Seoul refugees. Or have they simply learned the lesson we taught them about consequences? President Tae Young-han, now calling himself Emperor of the expanding Terran hegemony, addressed the council via hologram from Earth. His appearance shocked the alien delegates. The man who had once negotiated trade agreements now looked like a figure carved from stone and ice. 2 years ago, you had a choice, he said, his voice carrying across the chamber like a judge pronouncing sentence. You could have condemned the murder of innocent humans. You could have offered aid to the survivors. You could have shown that the galaxy had some measure of decency left. He paused, letting his words sink in. Instead, you celebrated our suffering. You called it justice. You said we deserved to die for daring to exist where you didn't want us. His eyes seemed to burn through the hologram. Today, you learn what justice actually looks like. Behind him appeared a display showing the current status of Iron Storm operations. Red markers indicated systems under human attack. The map was mostly red. The killing stops when every government that supported or ignored the New Seoul massacre no longer exists. Emperor Han continued. You can surrender your fleets, abandon your colonies, and live as refugees in whatever space we choose to give you. Or you can fight us and join your victims in extinction. The choice is yours. The transmission ended, leaving the council chamber. In stunned silence, Captain Min-ho Kim's New Seoul's vengeance led a strike force against the fortress world of Keth Prime, where Valdric military leaders had held a celebration party after the colony's destruction. The planet's surface was covered with weapon platforms and shield generators. It was supposed to be impregnable. Sir, their defenses are formidable, reported Tactical Officer Park Yoon-ji. Not formidable enough, Captain Kim replied. Load the planet crackers. The planet crackers were Dr. Mi Young Kang's most terrifying creation, weapons that could split worlds apart from the inside. A single warhead could create tectonic instabilities that would tear a planet into asteroid-sized chunks. Target the primary shield generator with conventional weapons first, Captain Kim ordered. I want them to see what's coming. The shield generator vanished under focused plasma fire. Suddenly vulnerable, the fortress world's defenders sent increasingly desperate messages. Please, we'll surrender. We'll give you anything you want. You had everything we wanted 2 years ago, Captain Kim answered. Peace. The chance to live quietly and raise our children safely. You took that from us. Now we take everything from you. The planet cracker struck Keth Prime's core. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then cracks appeared across the continents. Molten rock fountained into the sky. The world shuddered and began to break apart. Captain Kim watched until the last piece of debris disappeared into space. Somewhere in that destruction had been the generals who toasted each other's health while New Seoul burned. Now they were atoms scattered on the stellar wind. Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out. hundreds of times. The Thorian Trade Federation found their commercial fleet burning. The crystalline hegemony watched their crystal cities shatter under human bombardment. The Hive Collective's breeding worlds were sterilized with weapons that made their atmosphere toxic to insect life. Each target had been chosen carefully. Each attack carried a message. The galaxy had taught humanity that might made right, that the strong could destroy the weak without consequence. Now humanity was teaching them the same lesson with interest. The war lasted 6 months. When it ended, 47 alien civilizations had been either destroyed completely or reduced to scattered refugee populations hiding in the outer rim. The balance of power in the galaxy had shifted permanently. Emperor Han stood in the rebuilt memorial chamber on New Seoul Station, looking at the wall that listed every victim of the massacre. Ji-Ho Lee, now Director of Colonial Reconstruction, stood beside him. "Do you think we've gone too far?" Ji-Ho asked quietly. 5 years had passed since the Iron Storm ended. The galaxy was a very different place now. Emperor Taeyong Han stood on the observation deck of New Seoul Station, looking out at the memorial gardens that had been built where the colony once existed. Millions of flowers from Earth bloomed in carefully maintained biodomes, each one representing a life lost in the massacre. Children from across human space came here to learn about the price of peace and the cost of justice. The Terran hegemony now controlled 40% of inhabited systems in the galaxy. But this had not come through conquest in the traditional sense. Most worlds had simply asked to join after seeing what happened to those who opposed humanity. The choice was simple: live under human protection or risk becoming another cautionary tale. "Your Majesty," said Admiral So-Young Park, approaching from behind. She wore the uniform of the peacekeeping armadas now, having been promoted after her exceptional service during the Iron Storm. "The quarterly security report is ready for your review." Emperor Han turned to face her. The years had aged him, but his eyes still burned with the same intensity that had driven him to reshape the galaxy. "How are our new colonies adapting?" "Better than expected. The former Valdric worlds are producing food again. The Nexari refugees we relocated there seem grateful for the chance to start over. Most importantly, there have been no incidents of anti-human sentiment. That was important. The New Seoul Protocols, the laws that now governed galactic civilization, made targeting human civilians a species-ending offense. Every government in known space understood this rule, and most enforced it strictly among their own people. "And the patrol reports?" Admiral Park smiled slightly. "All quiet. The Warbringers haven't had to fire their weapons in anger for 18 months. Most governments go out of their way to avoid even minor disputes with human interests." This was the new reality of the galaxy. 800,000 human warships patrolled the space lanes, their very presence a reminder of what happened to those who threatened human colonies. The ships were aging now, but they were still the most powerful fleet ever assembled. More importantly, everyone knew that humanity could build them again if necessary. Dr. Mi-Young Kang, now Director of Galactic Defense Technologies, had continued her weapons research. Her latest creations made the original Warbringer armaments look primitive by comparison. She had developed weapons that could sterilize entire star systems, create artificial supernovas, and manipulate time itself on a local scale. "We call it the Prometheus Array," she explained to Emperor Han during their monthly briefing. "It's a network of satellites that can be activated from Earth. If any government ever threatens human civilians again, we can end their civilization before they fire a shot." "And the other species know about this?" "Oh yes. We made sure they understand the capabilities. The technical specifications are publicly available through diplomatic channels. We want them to know exactly what they're dealing with." This was the genius of the new galactic order. Humanity ruled not through oppression, but through the simple certainty that resistance was futile. Most alien governments found this arrangement preferable to the chaotic warfare that had defined galactic politics before human intervention. The Kepler Alliance, which had offered aid to New Seoul refugees, now enjoyed preferred trading status with human colonies. Their ships were protected by Terran escorts and their worlds were defended by human battle stations. They had prospered under the new order. "We are grateful," their ambassador told Emperor Han during a state visit. "Before humanity established order, our merchant ships were constantly attacked by pirates. Our colonies lived in fear of larger empires. Now we can trade freely and raise our children in peace." This was the other side of the Terran hegemony. For those who had shown kindness to humans, life had never been better. Trade flowed freely under human protection. Scientific knowledge was shared openly. Wars between species had become virtually extinct because everyone knew that fighting would attract human attention. Ji-Ho Lee walked through the New Seoul Memorial every morning. As director of colonial reconstruction, he oversaw the rebuilding of human worlds and the integration of refugee populations. But his personal ritual was always the same. He would stop at the small plaque that bore his sons' names and tell them about his day. "The new schools opened on former Valdric 7 today," he said quietly, placing fresh flowers by the memorial stone. "Human children and Valdric refugees learning together. Your mother would have liked that, boys. She always said, education could heal anything." The integration had been surprisingly successful. The surviving Valdrics, now living on worlds provided by human charity, had adapted to their new circumstances with remarkable grace. Their children grew up speaking human languages and learning human values. Many served in the Terran colonial service, helping to build the peaceful galaxy their parents had tried to destroy. Captain Min-Ho Kim, now Admiral of the Inner Defense Fleet, commanded the forces that protected human core worlds. His ship New Soul's Vengeance had been retired to orbit Earth as a museum, but he still visited it regularly. "Sir, why do you come here so often?" asked his aide, Commander Yoon Jae-sung. "To remember what we're defending," Admiral Kim replied, looking at the memorial wall in the ship's main corridor. "And to make sure we never forget why we built all this." The wall displayed images from the New Seoul massacre alongside pictures of the galaxy today. Children playing safely on colony worlds. Alien refugees building new homes under human protection. Trade ships moving freely through space under the watchful eyes of Terran patrols. "Do you think the price was worth it, sir?" Admiral Kim was quiet for a long moment. "Ask the parents whose children sleep safely tonight because the monsters are afraid to come out. Ask the traders who move their goods without fear of pirates. Ask the colonies that build schools instead of fortresses." He turned to face his aide. "The price was 47 civilizations that chose to celebrate the murder of children. I think that was a bargain." The alien refugees had adapted in different ways. Some, like the Valdrics, had embraced their new lives and worked to earn human trust. Others maintained their cultures while accepting human protection. A few had chosen to leave explored space entirely, seeking worlds beyond human influence. The galaxy's major trade routes now ran through human space. The Terran credit had become the standard currency for interstellar commerce. Human technology flowed freely to allied worlds, while potential threats found themselves isolated and ignored. "We've created a stable peace," reported Intelligence Director Woo Jin-shin during the annual security briefing. "Crime rates are at historic lows. Interspecies conflicts have dropped by 98%. Even piracy has virtually disappeared. And the threats? There are always some. The Outer Rim Collective talks about human tyranny and galactic liberation. A few extremist groups on remote worlds preach about overthrowing the hegemony, but they're mostly just talk. They know what happens to anyone who actually threatens human civilians. This was the dark foundation that supported the peaceful galaxy. Everyone knew that humanity had the power to destroy any threat and the will to use that power. The memory of the Iron Storm was still fresh enough to keep potential troublemakers in line. Commander So Young Park's daughter, Min Jung, had grown up in this new galaxy. At 15, she was already showing interest in joining the colonial service, following her mother's path of protecting human interests across the stars. "Mom, do you ever regret what we did to the aliens?" she asked during one of their conversations. "Do you know what your grandfather's last words were?" Commander Park replied. "Tell them to make these monsters pay." Exactly. We kept his promise. Every human child who sleeps safely tonight, every colony that builds schools instead of bunkers, every alien who has learned to respect human life, That's his legacy. That's all our legacy, Minjung nodded thoughtfully. Will there ever be another war like that? Only if someone is stupid enough to threaten human civilians again. And after what the galaxy saw happen to the last group that tried it? I don't think anyone is that stupid. Emperor Han made his final visit to the New Soul Memorial on the 5th anniversary of the Iron Storm's end. He was older now, graying at the temples, but his resolve remained as strong as ever. As he stood before the wall of names, he spoke the words that had become the unofficial motto of the Terran hegemony. We remember the fallen. We protect the living. We never forgive those who threaten our children. The memorial chamber fell silent, except for the gentle hum of the life support systems. Outside the windows, the stars shone peacefully on a galaxy where human children could grow up without fear. The Warbringer fleets continued their eternal patrol, moving through space like guardian angels made of steel and fire. Their crews were younger now. Many had not even been born when New Soul burned, but they carried the same dedication as their predecessors. They knew their duty: ensure that the massacre could never happen again. On distant worlds, alien children learned about the humans in their history classes. They learned about the peaceful colonists who had been murdered for no reason other than existing in the wrong place. They learned about the terrible justice that followed and the new order that had emerged from the ashes.